Oh, hi, everybody. I wanted to just talk about the legal aid cuts and the effect it's having, with particular reference to the fact that people seem to think that if you've been wrongly convicted of something, it's incredibly easy to go to a lawyer, to appeal, which is a free service. You can get legal aid for that. But if the appeal doesn't work, or they don't look at the evidence, basically you're stuck. You've got to go to the criminal case review, which is your next point of call. Cuts have happened to them as well, big cuts. And these cuts, while they're not the legal aid cuts, they're just cuts the criminal case review board. And they're ending up with very poor lawyers looking at people's cases. They're not looking at the evidence again. They're just doing what's easy for them to do and just totally ignoring facts. Now, they're one of many. Now, if you want to get a judicial review done, which is your next thing that you would do, again, £50,000, £60,000 or more. A number of cases have gone, where they've paid for it privately, and they've paid more than £100,000. So basically, if you're without funds, you can't prove your case. It doesn't matter how good your evidence is. And then they turn around and say it's got to be new evidence. It mustn't have been heard in court. Never mind if it's been heard in court and totally ignored, which is what happened to my friend and other people. And the unlimited funds of the CPS, the police, etc., for prosecution, takes away any equality of arms, which is a little phrase in the law and the rules for a defendant and other people, meaning you've got to have, if I have a barrister, they have a barrister. If I have a Queen's Counsel, they have a Queen's Counsellor. The joke is, if you can't afford it, you'll get a bog standard solicitor and a poor barrister, because the solicitor can't afford to pay a good barrister, or they don't have the connections with the good barristers. And of course, there are plenty of people in the law now who simply refuse to do legal aid work and who expect somebody with no money at all to pay 50, 60,000 pounds and to put it up front and to go to court with that kind of money up front. And the reason they want it up front is if they lose the case, they know they're going to get paid. And then you have to pay the opposition as well. You have to pay their costs. I mean, the judge would normally make that order that you pay their costs as well. Again, if you've got poor representation, poor people fighting for you, who are not really fighting for you at all, who are just going, well, here's the case, and I'll read off that. And if the court doesn't accept it, well, never mind. And that's the kind of thing that's happening. And in your original prosecution, you may find that the lawyer will rush in to see the defendant a few minutes before the court case and say, "Oh, plead guilty. I'll get you a short sentence." It doesn't matter if you're not guilty. There's been a rise in miscarriages of justice, a big rise in people being found guilty who are not guilty. And on Channel 4, some of you may have seen The Secret Barrister. He's written a book. I read the book. And what he's doing is doing 4 short films about the state of our justice system and the cuts and the multiple effects these cuts are having on the defendants and the people fighting for justice themselves who have been victims of crime. They are the people suffering, as are defendants also. And of course, people love to slag off different defendants. Oh, you're a criminal. The fact is, some of them are not criminals at all. They've been wrongly accused. And I've been banging on about this for some time. And just recently, there was a discussion online about something completely different. And a friend of mine commented. And they were far more interested in the fact that he'd been convicted of crimes than what he was saying, as if he had absolutely no right to say anything. The fact is, he was one of these people for whom a massive miscarriage of justice had happened. And the chances of him getting justice are virtually nil unless he can get the money that he needs. He is approaching other lawyers. He is trying to get where they no win, no fee. But most of them won't do that. Hopefully somebody will in the end. But until it's actually resolved, his life is completely destroyed. And because it relates to so-called sex offences, which he didn't do, it's just horrible to hear people scream at him in the street and things like that, and spit him at him in the face. There's been a whole series of things happening, and to know that he's innocent, and he isn't the only one. And there have been, in some cases, so-called offenders who were not offenders at all, who've been very seriously injured by people who righteously think, oh, I'll have a go, who don't know and don't listen. And until it's them, they just do not understand it, because they think that justice is somehow fair, which it no longer is. It's only justice for the rich now. If you've got money, you'll buy the justice and the good quality representation you need. If you haven't got money, you won't get it, unless you're, by pure chance, you get a lawyer that's some good. And of course, there are good and bad lawyers out there. But hundreds of solicitors are refusing to take any legal aid at all. They just won't do the legal aid work because the money is so bad, they can't afford to pay all the people that they need when they take on a case. Because you remember, it's not just him appearing in court. It's all the writing, the preparation, and the talking to you, the defendant going backwards and forwards, writing reports, investigating the evidence against them to the best of their ability, looking for faults in it. Like the Secret Barrister did in the Channel 4 film yesterday evening. A doctor was facing very serious sexual offences, so serious he could have got a life sentence. The fact is, it never happened. And that's the point. It never happened. But believe me, there'll be people out there that would have heard that report and we were all no smoke without fire. And it's just so stupid. As I always remember in Carry On Teacher, when somebody said no smoke without fire, and he turned around and said sometimes there's whacking great plumes of smoke and no fire. The point I'm making is, until you actually experience it and understand it, or have a close friend or relative for whom this has been the case, you don't know. And people are not fighting for legal aid and for the help that these defendants need because they think they're not worth it, until somebody knocks on their door and arrests them for something that they know nothing about. Then suddenly they're screaming, oh, I'm not getting justice, oh. But you should be helping my mate and a whole group of other people, if you possibly can. Look at what's happening and understand, because in prison at the moment, not just for those sort of offences, but a whole range of offences, and they haven't done it. Bye, everybody.